Welcome to today's episode of the AI Trailblazer podcast. Today we have a very exciting guest. He is none other than Albert, the founder and CEO at BearWorks. So, Albert, it's a great pleasure to have you here with us on the podcast today. Let's start off a bit with yourself. What is your background and what led you to start BearWorks?
Sure. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of BearWorks. We're an AI sales company headquartered in New York City. So my background, I spent half my career in B2C startups and the second half of my career in B2B startups. So prior to this, I was a director of product at Datadog, where I launched several of their multi-billion dollar products, including application performance management. After that, I was a VP of product at Materialize, which is a streaming database. And so one of the reasons we started BearWorks is we're excited about the opportunity to leverage data in the sales process. So, sales is not getting any easier, and with a lot of trends, people are generating more data. So our objective here is to empower business users to increase their sales and also be more data driven.
Interesting. Then, can you walk us through a bit more about your product, BearWorks? What kind of problem does it solve exactly? And then who does it help exactly as well?
Sure, of course. So BearWorks is an AI-powered parallel dialer that allows salespeople to connect with their prospects more efficiently. So today, there's a lot of everyone's super busy and it's complicated to get people to connect with you. But ultimately, sales is still about building a human connection. So what our product does is that we can call um, 10 times more people than you would do manually. So, if you're trying to reach out to somebody, you have to figure out who you're going to call, prepare your conversation notes, take notes, follow up, and they might not even pick up the phone. Right. And so our system automates this. We connect seamlessly with your CRM or whatever sales engagement platform that you have. We figure out the best person to call next and connect you with that person in real time. So one of the challenges if you're doing a auto dialing or parallel dialing is that there's latency. So sometimes you'll hear a beep, say hello, and there's silence on the other side. So one of the big things that we did is not only do we call more people faster, but also we connect you instantly. And so as soon as Bruce, let's say, says hello, I can hear you. I get a live transcript of what to say, and we actually give suggestions on what to say. So you're kind of prepared for that conversation. So at least you know that you're getting connected with a human on the other side, right? Some of our competitors, there's a bit of delay. You're getting connected, and so it kind of puts you off on the back foot, right? You're kind of upset, like I know I'm being auto called. It's a sales call. The other thing that we're working on is adding personalization. So let's say you're calling um, a founder of a company based in Singapore. We might pull up some interesting facts about Bruce and some kind of cold opener, rapport building kind of messages that align, right? Oh, let's say I'm working on a sales tech company. Bruce, would this be able to be relevant for your business? Here's a case study from someone similar to you.
Okay, interesting. So now let's talk a bit about your role within the company and then how does it fit into the bigger picture at BearWorks?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the co-founder and CEO. I think, we're early stage venture backed startup, so you're kind of doing everything, right? My background, like I said, I've been doing product and engineering for about 20 years. Uh, so switching between kind of product management, figuring out what to work on, talking with customers, but also like it's a small company, and so there's a lot of operations involved. Anywhere from uh, very exciting things like paying the rent and doing insurance for your company or looking for new offices, making sure that your invoices are all taken care of. So it's kind of jumping around for all these different things from day to day, depending on what makes sense. We do have around 15, 20 people worldwide, and so we're kind of a hybrid team. There's about five of us in New York City. Sometimes it's in-person meetings, but I do have uh, there's a lot of meetings. So, I think one of uh, the things that kind of keeps me busy is just coordinating with the team, right? So we try to have a remote friendly digital kind of environment, right? So we're all in Slack, we're all in Zoom or Google Meets, but we're also trying to share that knowledge, share that roadmap or what we're working on across the company. And so my point, I was just making a joke where I'm just in a lot of meetings all day. That's one of the things we do with BearWorks. So another thing I mentioned, so we're primarily a dialer, but we also have this virtual sales floor where all your users can hear each other in real time. And so the benefit for that is you're learning from each other side by side. You're kind of collaborating because in this kind of post-COVID remote world, there's great talent everywhere, but learning from each other when you're not sitting side by side is more.
Okay, then what would you say, I guess, is the main priority for you right now in growing the business, let's say for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? I think it's an early stage startup, so it changes quite a bit from quarter to quarter. I think sometimes the focus will switch. I kind of think of it like you have some hierarching overall roadmap, right? Here's where we want to go in the 3 to 5 year range, but also sometimes it's, oh hey, look, our biggest priority is go to market, right? Let's focus a lot on marketing, figuring out improving our marketing channels, improving that funnel conversion rates. And since we're a bit smaller, the teams will tend to focus on certain things. Like other times, a quarterly focus may be, oh, let's clean up our product engineering and operations. So improving the product, double investing on certain areas, and that carries to the marketing and GTM team, right? So they're improving the website, improving documentation, improving the onboard flow. And so, I guess what I'm trying to say is that we kind of have more like focuses and say, hey, look, these are our top three focuses. And then I kind of push it down to the team, let the team kind of individually figure out what that actual plan will kind of look like, but kind of having a theme, kind of like almost not, we're too small to do OKRs, but almost like.
I see. So why would you say is it so important for you to improve on the marketing right now as well as, some of the funnel conversion? Like what would be the end goal or the end impact on your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough now, right? Obviously, everyone's inboxes are filled with AI generated content, right? And so response rates for digital are just dropping everywhere that we're seeing. But that being said, it still works, right? I think having a well targeted, at the end of the day, people are all have problems and are looking for solutions, and awareness is a bigger problem. So having a thoughtful position, having a strong point of view, um, and obviously clearly messaging this to the right persona is super important. And so we've been testing a lot of different things, testing different channels, some paid, some non-paid, testing in person. Like I think I'm sure this podcast shows, right? People want to learn from interesting people that make sense to. And so we've also found that conferences and events, it's very labor intensive, but you have a chance to meet with your customers. And so we've had this great opportunity to some of our best customers. They started either online or in person, but we've tried to make an effort to connect with them at least as often as we can.
Got it. So you also mentioned that you are testing like a few channels right now. What would you say are some of the channels that have worked really well, and then what are some that hasn't worked as well as you expected?
So as it comes and goes, we're still early, so it's hard to tell. Is it seasonality or is it the macro? But in terms of what's working well for us, like I said, social media is quite effective. In the sales GTM space, there's people are always swapping notes and chatting and stuff like this. So obviously LinkedIn has been pretty good. Referrals, word of mouth, offline things, conferences and events have been pretty successful for us. But like I said, it's just expensive and labor intensive. I think the one that's kind of going through cycles is paid marketing. It's Meta, LinkedIn, Google, those kind of traffic. It's been stable, but it kind of comes through waves. Sometimes it's very effective, and other times we've noticed that it seems to drop depending on time of year or also conversion rates. So it's kind of a continual testing effort for us. Given what we do, given that we're top of funnel outbound, we obviously have made a lot of effort into investing in our outbound motion. I think what's interesting and exciting there is people keep getting more sophisticated, right? I think there's tools like Clay, there's tools like Unify, which we're really excited about. Kind of signal based selling. I think what's hard there is, it's kind of like an arms race, as um, more and more startups start to use it. If it's just kind of blindly used, if it's not done in a thoughtful way, then we haven't found great conversion, right? It's not just because, oh yeah, I found whatever, let's just automate my LinkedIn. That's it's not going to work necessarily, but connecting to the right person at the right time, we have found that that's very successful.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, outbound is all about reaching the right people at the right time with the right message, right? So all of this signal-based selling only compounds what either works already or what doesn't work. You know, the basic stuff. Yeah. So you spoke about all of that regarding marketing. So what are some of the key metrics that you really want to improve for marketing in order to reach some of the business goals that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. So I guess there's like two dimensions, right? One is the day to day, where obviously making sure our pipeline is full, right? How many marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads? What's that conversion rate, right? So we do look at a very high level at our, cost per conversion, sales cycle times, all those kind of things, just to make sure we hit our quarterly numbers. At the higher level though, like I'm not looking at that at like a weekly level, right? Because I think the challenging thing about being too focused on the numbers is that then you might want to game it, right? If you just want to get meetings, I can bring in unqualified leads
Yeah,
and do that.
true.
To answer your question, the other thing I look at is risk, right? What is, uh, since we're venture backed, what matters is also is it scalable, right? Have we found a process that's consistent and repeatable, um, that can be um, grown with more people, with more personas and stuff like this. And so I kind of view we've got a great team. Like, hey, look, if we find a good channel, we can kind of optimize it and bring our conversion rates up and our cost down over time. But you find something that's um, like, oh, I found something interesting. So we're testing some things we're pretty excited about. Like I mentioned, events and conferences is one. There's some pretty cool things where we're leveraging uh, both hyper personalization, but as well as kind of AI agents. Early stage, but we're showing some pretty good promise here.
Okay, cool. Then what have been some of the challenges or obstacles that you have faced while trying to grow BearWorks?
I think the two lessons for me have been, one is um, it's a startup, and so a lot of it is just execution. You have to just keep trying a lot of things and doing it. And it's hard. It's this balance of seeing the forest from the trees. One is, you're coming up with strategy, saying, hey, look, here's a new idea, but also executing on it fast enough. You know, there's a lot of cases where people have had good GTM ideas, but it just wasn't executed well. And so that's what's always hard. The other thing for me is ultimately it's about people, right? And so I think finding, connecting with people and moving quickly. If you find someone you connect with, then you just move really quickly. Well, obviously, it doesn't always work, unfortunately, and it's not necessarily either party's fault, but maybe it's just not the right time or not the right fit. And so always connecting with high quality, high caliber folks. I think that's been the needle mover, but it also takes a lot of time.
Okay, then what have been some of the ways that you've been either trying to find this kind of higher caliber folks to work with or, trying to ensure that it is a success when you do work out with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm still figuring out myself, so I have to listen to your podcast and get. But I mean, I think stating the obvious ones, referral networks, right? People we've worked with in our careers, mentor advisors. That's been helpful. I think before we started, we're talking about Singapore versus New York, right? I think the good and the bad thing about New York is there's a lot of people and there's a lot of events. So there's always a lot of founder events or startup events and that kind of stuff. I think those like both Singapore and New York are big cities, right? I think the challenge there is it's still hit and miss, right? If it's not through your network, it can still be pretty noisy. I think I've been not as good about leveraging. I'm sure there's probably some tool that's been recommended on your podcast here for like looking for influencer networks, right? There's what I think is interesting is on social media, there's a lot of noise or sharing out there, right? And so there are obviously some famous folks out on social media that we kind of follow. I think um, it's the harder part is, there's people who are not as active on social media, but those are the ones I think you have to be keeping an eye out for, right? They're like the silent killers where they're just executing and building these super successful businesses, but they're not out there talking about it all day long. And so that's been the kind of network that I'm trying to leverage and break out into more. I think a big lesson for me is in sales tech, everybody's on LinkedIn all day, right? That's the big thing, but it's the people who aren't up there posting and updating their LinkedIn all day. That's harder to find.
Okay, that is true. So then let's go circle back to your point earlier about being able to execute the strategy, right? So I guess what have been some of your takeaways from your years in business so far that you have found that have been really useful in being able to execute strategy, right? And can you give like a more specific example of this?
Yeah. So a few examples here. I think kind of there's two dimensions. One is just the execution, the kind of blocking and tackling, and I think it's just kind of trusting your team, but trying to push. So good examples here. Like I said, I've built a number of teams and startups here. I think just learning what is a detail that matters and learning about what doesn't matter, right? And so um, some examples could be building a successful product. So my background, like I said, I spent half of it in consumer, half of it in enterprise. We've been always very customer focused, right? And so one of the challenges is, when you have all these customers that are asking for things, they want this feature, they're complaining about this thing that's broken. You have this new initiative that you want to focus on. Like, where do you spend your time, right? And so knowing really quickly, like, hey, is this going to be a game changer or not? Should I delegate this out? Can we just ignore this? I think that's been really critical. Just obvious things, probably familiar to everybody, but basically setting up, triage meetings, right? So once a week or every few days, where you kind of bundle up all the issues and then get a sense of just ranking it. This is just project management 101, where you kind of, is this customer severity, right? Is this high priority? Is this going to move the needle in terms of the business? And obviously there's a dimension of impact to the business, right? Is this a top tier customer? Are they existing customer? Are they a new prospect or something like that? So sometimes when you're at the heat of the moment, you have all these angry customers. It feels like everything's urgent, but kind of noticing, hey, look, let's just hopefully calm down and let it bundle up for a while. Then you kind of realize, hey, look, some of these are not as urgent. The other dimension I'd say is really taking time to dedicate towards like strategy, right? Where it's like, hey, what are we going to invest in at the company level? Or what are we lacking? So when you're so busy, heads down, maybe you forget, hey, let's look at this competitor, right? There's some cool new technology. As an example, we've been playing around with obviously AI, and so we're as a company, we're really excited about um, agentic behavior, and more specifically, we're playing around with MCP. So Anthropic's model context protocol. I think that's really going to change how you integrate and connect with other systems and data and whatnot. And so definitely we're making time myself, and I'm trying to push this down to the whole company where we're all trying out different AI agents, um, both for development, and we're also trying some in production as well. Like I said, where we're obviously doing a lot with voice, but not just voice, kind of automation of what we're doing as well. Making sure that there's time for people to play around with it, and kind of share those lessons learned is kind of important, because I think the thing I'm wrestling with now is you see these once in a lifetime kind of changing moments. How do you know when to double down on certain things and make these bets? So the other dimension is most of those things are kind of internal. I mentioned the other thing is obviously looking outwards, looking at the market, and talking to other trusted folks or companies and getting a sense of where that market is moving.
Got it. So you've touched on quite a couple of also challenges at this point. Yeah, so let's say hypothetically, if you had a magic wand to fix one thing in the business right now that is either holding you back or slowing down your progress to get to your goals, what would that one thing be?
I'd say good question. I think it's goes down to people. I think if we could find a magical channel of amazing um, amazing people to bring into the company as well as partner. Um, it's we're always looking for those kind of trusted networks, right? This is not just around employees and team members and leaders at the company, but it's also even your customers, right? Like sometimes when you have an amazing customer, it's just a great partnership where you're helping them out, you're a perfect fit, but also they're helping drive your product roadmap, right? They're giving you great feedback, and they're just um, you're just feeding off of each other. We have a few of these
Yeah.
customers, which we're super grateful for, but always looking for more of those. I think thinking through this ultimately it's product market fit and thinking that through about what is that timing, right? Maybe is there something about the person, not just from a personal level, but maybe there's this person in this industry. There's something about that that's interesting, and so constantly testing this hypothesis, trying to connect with better people networks. That definitely keeps us up, especially keeps me up at night, especially because, like I said, we're a remote team. It's a bit more has to be more intentional to make sure that.
So let's say moving forward, what would be your biggest, I guess, priority for BearWorks? Is it just continue to invest in people or are there major priorities?
Yeah, I guess that change a different dimension. One thing that we're focusing on now is um, making the product as easy to use as possible. You know, uh, right now we're um, we're kind of similar. Sales tech companies are mostly sales led motions, but I come from a product led motion. Right, Datadog was very self serve, very land and expand, all those kind of things. So price dating some obvious facts, but you mentioned people, role models, or whatever we look at. Like Apollo is interesting, Clay is quite interesting, right? And those are both product-led motions where they kind of tried some iteration loop. They found that, hey, look, there's something in the onboard motion didn't work. They found that something in the user flow didn't work, in the user journey, where they had to have human intervention, right? The humans had to help guide this person or something like that. And so we kind of trying that out where we have users and see how far along that flow they can get, and then we notice, hey, look, there's a bunch of problems here. Let's automate this and clean that up. And so we've gone through a few iterations of that. We're kind of in our third iteration here. And so that's a big focus for us. It's a little iterative, but we're trying to spin up tools, traditional product led tools, like user recording, like user analytics. We do an okay job of feature flagging and A/B testing, but and kind of continual deploying, but also like looking, say, hey, look, we launched this new feature. Who is using it? Is that going to work out? So trying to bring in those more consumery products, even though we're a B2B.
Makes sense. So I guess that ties on into sort of our last segment of the podcast. What kind of shifts or trends are you noticing in your industry right now? And then how is that impacting the growth of BearWorks?
I think AI is changing everything. Like I said, raw email conversion rates outbound, it's still working for a lot of folks, but it's getting more difficult, right? I think the high quality, if you're selling a good product, I mean, your PMF, then it's working super well. Some of our customers and partners, they're just growing like rocket ships. It's great for them. Whereas like if you're still figuring it out, then it's a little bit harder. And so why is that? Well, like I said, obviously people's emails are just filled with untargeted messages. And so what we are seeing surprisingly interest is this is a little bit self-serving, but the lesson for me, some of our customers, you sell to personas um, that are traditionally, you might think they're allergic to sales, they're allergic to outbound, but actually, like, we're all busy, right? I think you had to chase me a few times to get on this, and at the end of the day, it was just you need that nudge. It takes multiple steps and multiple conversations, and people want to do it. It's just everyone's busy.
Some across different channels too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a great point. If you knocked on my door, definitely we'd be faster. So yeah, you're right. Different channels: email, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, WeChat, or whatever. And so going back to your point about trends, I think everyone's testing AI. There's interesting things about not just personalization, not about automated research and stuff like that, but let's be thoughtful about this, right? Let's bring up a relevant case study to your customer. Let's bring up you are you're an enterprise buyer, and we've had all these conversations. Let's tie back my solution to your trends, right? And so what we found as a trend is buyers actually are more interested in having a solution upfront. That pre-sales work is actually more important than post-sales, right? So in the past, customers would be like, oh yeah, take me out to a steak dinner. I want to go out to a basketball game, right? Whatever. Now it's or a golf, whatever. Now it's actually like, help me solve my problem. Like, do you know my solution for me? Let's say I'm a buyer one of one. You have to know my specific problems, and it's like, fair or not, right? That seller has to say the right language, say the right problems that resonate to you. Not even your competitor. Even your competitor, they might be a little bit different than you. So having this super personalized understanding is getting more important. That's been a trend we've been seeing. Cool. Thanks so much, Bruce. I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks for having me.